We're back, another edition. Something right. If we got the panel to all convene on the same day and the same time, once again, I'm thrilled to have a chance to just sit back and listen to Key, Vic, and E-Rock. It's probably going to be that order for the most part of the day. All right, E-Rock, just get used to kind of being the caboose for most of the questions. I know you've been busy like we all have been, but let's look, we've got a couple of things, some fun stuff like the arrival of Andy Dalton in our division, right? The NFC East, owned and run by the Philadelphia Eagles. But Carson Wentz had a press conference, as every press conference will be. So let's just start, Vic, let's start with you. We'll go to Key and E-Rock and kind of get your thoughts on the Carson Wentz presser, which of course turned into the Jalen Hurts presser, and kind of what we should be expecting, not on the field, but kind of the conversations that we should all be expecting or maybe even partaking in up until these guys actually play a preseason game. Regarding, of course, Hurts and Wentz and Hurts.
Yeah, so the QB2 presser, as we all know it, that I think the main takeaway is that Carson, the way I summarized it is that Carson, whether the front office told him like to say this or not, he could personally care less what QBs are in there. They're going to have to forcibly take that spot from him. So that's kind of the notion he gave off in the conference. He said, I'm the most motivated guy in that room. I'm happy that Jalen's here. I'll be happy to teach him and have him learn under me. But as far as the starting quarterback goes, and he doesn't really care who knows it. I think that he said all the right things, basically that if he was going to look at Howie, he would look at himself first before any of that and those kind of things. But I think he kind of laid to rest any notion that Jalen Hurts would be a threat. As I doubt any of us believe that Hurts is really a threat. I think in this situation that we're in now, Nate Sudfeld was kind of the QB2 at this point, and they're grooming Jalen Hurts to be the backup after Sudfeld is gone. So that's kind of the notion I took away from it.
My opinions on it are actually pretty similar. I think that Carson is a very straightforward guy. I also think he's a bit of a perfectionist, which is good in this case because, like Vic said, he's going to use that Hurts to pick to push him and be a better quarterback. You're not going to be able to pry that job from him unless he gets injured. But Carson's always a guy that's going to be positive, going to be upbeat, partially because of his faith, and he's always going to say the right thing. And that's something that's definitely admirable about him. I think the measure of his career is going to be how much adversity ultimately he can overcome. And I think he's using that to motivate himself, which is great. But I truly do believe in that QB room. He is going to help Hurts. I do think that he will be a great teammate and a great leader.
I completely agree with the both of you. I think that he did a wonderful job of saying the correct answers. Realistically, what was he supposed to do? Say, yeah, no, they shouldn't have drafted the kid, or I don't want this guy to be in the room with me, or what the hell did they do that for? He said the right things. Of course he was going to say the right things. He's a representation of the organization, and the Eagles wouldn't have invested everything they invested in Carson Wentz if they didn't believe he was going to answer those questions correctly. But, Vic, where I will disagree with you is on this thing, laid to rest. Oh, nothing is laid to rest. Oh, this is just
he attempted to, but
Yeah, he attempted to. I'll agree with you there. He attempted to, but trust me, this conversation is going to keep popping up, and it's not Carson Wentz's fault, and it's not Jalen Hurts' fault. It's a little bit of Howie's fault, but realistically, we know the media in this market. We know what this market is all about. This conversation will be continued to be had. Heaven forbid Carson Wentz struggles early on in the season. This conversation is going to intensify, but I have faith that he'll handle it like a pro, like he always has, and be able to overcome that.
Did it bother? And I almost ask this rhetorically because I know, especially in this city, we have a different vibe when it comes to the media, people that are in that room asking questions as opposed to, people on the outside, whatever it may be, having opinions. But did it bother any of you? I mean, Key, were you watching that? Did it get uncomfortable? Because being a fan of Wentz, you're almost like, come on, how many times do you need to ask the same question over and over again to the same person?
I wish that pretty much every single conversation about Wentz or two Wentz didn't have to involve some sort of not controversy, but some sort of just
it feels it, right?
Yeah, it feels that way. Like, I hate to use that word, but it truly feels that way. Like, we can never not talk about Nick Foles or not talk about injuries or not talk about Hurts or this, that. It always has to be something where he's looking over his shoulder or his durability is being questioned. There's not enough positivity around it, and it is hard to watch. It really is. But the way he handles it only makes me respect him more as a player and a human being.
Yeah, the fact that they kind of like they didn't like kick his new daughter to the curb, but they were kind of like, "Congrats! So how pissed off are you about Jalen?"
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Damn, you couldn't even like." So even with like, I think it's been since the playoff game he spoke. They didn't ask him about the concussion or his daughter or the coronavirus. It was just like, "Hey, did Jalen Hurts piss you off?" And then Carson was like, "I figured that was coming."
Right.
So that was the only kind of I think it was not even a week ago Carson just had his daughter. So that was the only unsettling part. But as Key said. The way he handled it kind of like, rested. I was pissed off when I heard it, but then he talked and I was like, all right, if he's not pissed, then I shouldn't be pissed. Right. So that's kind of how I went about it.
Well, maybe that fuels the whole laid to rest, E-Rock, where Vic was talking about that earlier, where it's like you go through that first awkward presser where everybody's focusing on Hurts and not even the Clowney hit, let alone your new daughter. And now it's like, if you see him again, are people really going to talk more about Hurts?
Yeah.
I think they will. Listen, Wentz didn't bring this upon himself. Hurts didn't bring this upon himself. The Eagles brought this upon everybody. So, again, he's going to handle it like a pro. But for the remainder of the season, it's going to be like, so your daughter, you sleeping at night? Oh, by the way, what about Jalen Hurts? Hey, how'd you get the concussion? Yeah, what about Jalen? It's just.
It is not just that he throws an interception and a complete pass. We're going to hear it.
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna hear it from those fans that were just Carson Wentz haters. That's going to get dialed up to a 10. And again, Carson didn't bring it upon himself. Jalen didn't bring it upon himself. The Eagles organization kind of put everybody in the situation, and they're going to have to deal with it.
That's fair. And I think as we get closer and we start to actually hit real football, and maybe it's even a preseason game or camp, because there's going to be reports about how great somebody's arm looked at camp or how poor, even if assuming we get a real camp. So it's very fair, I think, to continue to raise it. I just wonder at some point if it dies, or to use the term that Vic said, if it is completely just done, right? Like that's it, and you move on. Well, let's look at something that kind of is more current right now. I know it came out of Houston, but our own Dave Zangaro here in Philadelphia put this out locally. The idea that there are 5 teams left on Jadeveon Clowney's list, and the Eagles being one of them. And I think from a lighter standpoint, it does bring up the whole Wentz and Clowney thing. I'm sure we all collectively agree the team would be better off with Clowney than not, right? Is there anybody that disagrees there?
We would be better with Clowney, in my opinion.
Okay. It's okay if you do.
From a football standpoint.
I don't want to. That's exactly football standpoint. That's fine. But again, if you disagree elsewhere, if any of this is your program, so that's why I ask. But
I do want to say one thing.
Sure.
Here's the thing. I'm going to say this first because people hear your point and they take 3 different points from it. But I just want to say that first and foremost, I think Jadeveon Clowney is a good player, and at the right price, I would absolutely take him here. But one thing that I will say about Clowney, and I said this earlier, is that I feel like a lot of people are still tied to that draft day Clowney hype that he never fully lived up to. Don't get me wrong, he's been a disruptive player at times, but I'm talking about like his pure production, and he's been slightly overpaid based off that production. Would he improve our team and our rotation? Absolutely. But I just find it funny that a lot of people have bashed a guy like Brandon Graham for his sack numbers, but if you look at 2014 to 2019, Brandon Graham has had more sacks than Clowney. So from a pure statistical standpoint, he doesn't deserve the full hype he's getting. I think people are more so just in love with the name. I don't think it's something that we necessarily have to do, but still would like, if that makes sense.
No, I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It would.
I'm not being a hater. I'm just saying I think it's just the name that people are so mystified by.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree with you. He never lived up to that, pre-draft hype. People would be buying into the name rather than buying into the production. And if he comes at the right price, let's face facts. He's a rotational guy in this system.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can get after the quarterback. He's a guy that can disrupt, and we've seen that evidence of that. And to speak on those Brandon Graham sack numbers, that's one of the things as me as a former. And listen, I'm not ashamed to admit it, a former Brandon Graham hater early on in his career. The sack numbers weren't there. But if you actually took a look at it, the way the guy plays the run, the way he disrupts, the timing, the pressure that he brings. He's always in the backfield. That accounts for something, and it certainly accounts for what Clowney's going to get paid. Should they go over the top with it? No, they shouldn't go over the top with it. But Howie's sitting on some cap room. Like, there's still another move to be made. Howie's sitting on some numbers here, so I'm not going to let the Wentz wagon sort of, I hate the guy because he ended our season prematurely last year, affect the decision to make the team better. For the right price, Key, I completely agree with you. Bring him on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the team wants to win. So obviously, I think Clowney's part of the reason why Jalen Hurts is here. So you can kind of fault him for that whole ordeal now. But I think that, like he mentioned, the 3 sacks last season isn't too encouraging. But as a rotational piece, he is intriguing. We'd much rather have a Yannick or Everson Griffin. I've seen those names thrown around. So obviously they're more productive. But there's a reason why Clowney hasn't been picked up yet, and it's because of his price tag. So if they can meet in the middle somewhere, and then him and Carson can handshake it out at the beginning of the year, then I think he would be a good addition to the defense. He would help round out the defensive line.
And Carson's a good guy. Clowney's not gonna come in the locker room and Carson's gonna say, "Get the hell out." That's not gonna happen.
Right.
He's gonna be a team player. He's gonna shake his hand. And as an Eagles fan, I was very pissed about that hit. And I was very kind of irritated with the backhanded comments he made at Eagle fans, but that was playoff trash talk. It's over. It's done with. If it helps a team in 2020, then so be it.
Yeah, if he was an Eagle saying that, I'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Right?
One of these
I love Clowney.
Carson's just going to snap in a press conference. He's going to be like, "You mean you tell me you drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round? You brought in the guy that ended my season last year.
Yeah.
And Alshon's still over here? Are you kidding me? What are you guys trying to do to me here?"
I've seen a lot of that on Twitter. Like, poor Wentz, he has to deal with all this. I'm like, he's grown. He'll be all right. He'll get
No,
it.
he'll be fine.
Crazy, though.
He's paid.
If anyone can deal with it,
He has 128 million reasons why not to care about it.
if anyone can deal with their backup quarterback winning a Super Bowl, they can deal with anything else. He'll be fine.
Yeah,
That's
Jalen Hurts,
true. That's the groundwork,
Yeah.
especially in this city, right? They didn't do that in Jacksonville. They didn't do that in Cleveland even. That happened in Philadelphia. If he could survive that, he can anything. I wonder, and take it any way you want, but what's that first conversation like? Because we're probably going to have to wait anyway. It's going to be a delayed first convo. Let's just assume hypothetically that they do sign Clowney. We get through all the Twitter stuff and all the crazy replaying of the hits, and those two actually meet for the first time in the locker room. Because to Key's point, it's not going to be negative. It's not going to be hostile. But is it one of these like where Wentz comes up and kind of corners him? Come on, man. you know you got me. Come on. Just admit it. Just admit you got me, and then we can move on.
It's going to be one of those water cooler talks. Like, they're going to be like, "Hey, man, just letting you know, no hard feelings, blah, blah, blah." And then Carson will be like, "Yeah, well, it was a hard feeling at the time, but we'll make it. We'll make it."
He points to Jalen and say, "Hey, next time, make sure you hit that guy."
We'll call it even if you take out Hurts.
Come on, E-Rock.
Terrible. You both. No, if anything, I think that he would probably just go a little bit overboard to prove his leadership at that point. I think Carson is super competitive and would probably just use that as more fuel and more ammunition. But I think he'll handle it with grace, and I think Clowney and Wentz would probably get along. I don't see any animosity to be had there. Plus Doug is a coach. I don't think this locker room would ever get too crazy under Doug, despite all the Alshon nonsense. I still feel that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is the locker room, even without, and we saw with Nick Foles, backup quarterback, they were lighting a shrine to him last year, not this past season, but 2 years ago. So clearly there's more than just Carson and the leadership. I wonder now, if you're Clowney, let's assume this. Now you're walking into that situation. Are you just going to keep your mouth shut until somebody says something about the hit?
I'm not bringing that up until somebody brings it up.
Nope.
I'm looking that way. I don't know what happened.
Come on, E-Rock, you're walking in there.
Hey, you got a baby.
Hey, how's your daughter? Hey, cool. See, I'm glad your head, is all right.
You're walking in there. Yeah, I did it.
Right. Right. Can't you see E-Rock doing that? Walking right in and just be like, "All right, look, before we get going on our first practice, I just want to let you know I led with my head."
Or they go 6 months without even bringing it up, and they're just cool. I have one question for Keith. You bring up the leadership thing, and I just thought about like the whole like Malcolm Jenkins thing. Do we think there's any merit to like there being like a leadership like how do you put it, like not interaction, like an issue with leadership between Carson Wentz and Malcolm Jenkins? Like, do you think they were battling that out and that's why Malcolm's not here? Or
I wouldn't say it's so much as a battle, but I would say that there is some truth to it. I don't fully believe that money is the reason that Malcolm Jenkins is not here. Look what he signed. Look what he signed for New Orleans with. I don't fully buy that that's the reason. I do think that Malcolm and Carson have very strong alpha male personalities, type A personalities when it comes to teams leadership. I do believe that there was some sort of, I wouldn't say animosity, but some sort of
confrontation,
clash.
They
probably had some sort of clash. Yeah.
Altercation.
So I actually agree with you. I don't fully buy that was about money, and I never did.
Right.
All right. Speaking of something that's definitely about money, and I don't know where it came from, but Dave Spadaro set the local world on fire. At least got us all kind of like, wait, what was that? Reinforcing this belief that some people would say they've heard, but it just hasn't been as public as it is recently. Maybe it's just because we are in the middle of a pandemic. But I guess the idea, belief, notion that Alshon Jeffrey will be a huge part of an offense that I think we all collectively thought was just not going to happen, meaning Alshon won't be on the team. And now that's a complete 180. So, E-Rock, let's start here with, because this is something that's been brewing for a minute now, as we talked about in the first episode. And I know all of us individually were talking about the team moving forward kind of as Alshon Jeffrey with an afterthought. I don't know how surprised you were to even find out that somebody as far as a team organ like Spadaro, so somebody inside that organization, would even think that Alshon Jeffrey would be back, let alone a huge piece of this offense.
Of course he's saying what he's saying. I mean,
well, you don't need to. Okay.
Well, no. I'm saying, of course he got, because every opportunity they had to dump him or trade him has gone by. I mean, if you're talking about saving yourself a little bit of money because that contract is a damn albatross, right? They should have never signed him to that much money. If you're gonna try to get rid of him, you're gonna do so to save yourself some money going into free agency. Can't take that kind of cap hit. Damn it. Okay. All right. We'll try to trade him during the draft. You can't trade him for any picks. Dude's hurt. Who's going to take on that contract? You're going to have to Brock Osweiler the guy and pay somebody a draft pick just to take that kind of money off of your hands. So at this point, you've got an older, slower, injured, snitchy, overpaid wide receiver. You can't get rid of him. So, he's going to be a big part of the offense. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the approach they have to take right now.
It's the only option they got.
Yeah. What are you going to do with him? What are you going to do? You can't trade him. You can't release him. You can't tell him to go home. All right. Well, you go catch balls.
Yeah. Bad contract and starting the year on the physically unable to perform list. It's the post-June designation. They had the ability to cut him with that designation. When they didn't do it, that should have been telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't know if this is even going to work, right? Like, what team, and I just throw it out here, what team is teetering on, I'll trade for Alshon or I won't trade for Alshon, and now basically a team report comes out from Philadelphia saying, oh, wait until you see. You thought it was crazy when we drafted a backup quarterback to be a flex player in the second round. Wait until you see what we have in store with Alshon Jeffrey come week 3 or 4 when he's healthy?
Oh, when Alshon gets his foot right and his mind right, he's going to light up the field. You're going to have Rager and Goddard and Zach Ertz going nuts. Okay, bro. Cool story.
I do feel like, I will say this, E-Rock, and I understand your feelings on Alshon, but I do think that they think when healthy, he'll still get somewhat of an impact with the speed that's going to be added on field. And I also say that they don't want to be caught in a situation where they're down to practice squad receivers again. So they have all hands on deck when it comes to that, is how I see it.
100%. And in fact, if you go back and look at the Miami game, wouldn't recommend it. It doesn't turn out well. But Alshon actually had a productive game there. And he was a go-to for Carson Wentz, like a security blanket. And he was, he caught a couple passes for a couple first downs. So, yeah, he's going to be productive. But, I'm not buying the hype that, you get the best of Alshon Jeffrey is yet to come.
No, we're not saying 2017 or late 2018 Alshon. We're not saying that. That's not happening.
Yeah.
His body language. He brought up the Miami game. His body language in that game was not encouraging. I just needed him to get off the field. I don't care what you catch him.
Well, let me ask one more on Jeffrey, and it's more of a bigger picture. We can move on to some fun stuff like Andy Dalton, of course, and what that did setting Dallas on fire over the weekend. But as far as Jeffrey and what you mentioned, E-Rock, the whole thing, the alleged snitching with Josina Anderson and everything regarding Wentz, and it clearly having an impact on Wentz, even if it was just mental and another hurdle that he has to clear. I wonder, and Key, I'll start here with you. I wonder if this is almost unnecessary to allow somebody who's allegedly involved in, kind of basically leaking and talking about things that impacted Wentz, when you don't have it any easier. In fact, with the arrival of Jalen Hurts, and it's, hey, Wentz, you got to play. If it's now even more difficult for any press conference in the middle of May or the middle of December to actually be about Wentz and not things around him.
Yeah. That's where the word allegedly comes into play. I mean, allegedly, Alshon said these things to Josina. I know that they are close, that they have talked before in the past, but we unfortunately do not know 100% sure if it was him. I know people don't want to admit that, but we don't 100% know for sure. And let's be logical as human beings. When a team there for 2018 and 2019, there was a point in the season for both seasons where it looked really bad and the Eagles weren't going to make the playoffs. So during times like that, players are frustrated. They might say something stupid to a reporter. It's very possible that Alshon or someone else may have made that comment to a reporter. But with him still being on the team, I don't think he would still be here if it wasn't okay with Carson, or if they didn't have some kind of relationship or talk it out. Even since then, we've seen them at Sixers games together. We've seen them, just acknowledging each other. So I don't think it's something that they haven't discussed or talked about. And one thing I will agree to E-Rock's point and to Etan's question, I will say that it is something that's going to be brought up. The Alshon comments and interviews will not go away, but I don't think that this will impact their relationship, or I don't think whatever the problem is, I think it's gone, is what I'm trying to say.
Am I next?
Yeah.
No, I was looking at
he's ready to argue with me.
I'm looking at Iraq like, what's he going to combat with? I just think, like he mentioned, I don't think there's much stock to put. There might have been at some point, but I don't think there's much stock at this point into who doesn't like Carson. Whoever said it, I think Alshon. I don't think he's not a fan of Wentz. You could find past tweets of him calling him an MVP and all that stuff, and they won a Super Bowl. So I doubt there's much bad blood there. Like he said, whatever issue there was, it has to be gone to this point or he wouldn't be here anymore. I know Howie isn't that blindsided to the fact that they would keep a toxic environment. So I think that I don't know how much he'll contribute next year. It's either they're either banking on Alshon to contribute or J-Jaw to develop. I don't know which one they're more confident in, but you need at least one of them, which is probably why Alshon is still here. So let's just hope that if he can catch 50 balls next year, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Allegedly. I mean, it's
allegedly.
all alleged. We're all talking about it. We're all assuming the Twitter detectives are out there. But I can tell you, having talked to the gentleman who wrote the piece and having asked him a number of questions one-on-one, that without naming names, I mean, he spelled it out that it was the wide receiver group, and it was specifically him, and you just hope that whatever bad blood is water underneath the bridge. I don't want to hear anything about it in 2020. Let's hope they just move forward.
Right.
That's fair. Look, and look, if you're Alshon right now, don't you leak that it was Aguilar?
At this point,
why not? He's in Oakland, so why not? I mean,
point, right?
he's paying the Raiders to play.
You're like, no, man, Nelson was the one feeding me. I was just responding, it wasn't me.
Yeah, like I said, I think it was just a frustrated group of guys because they were on a losing streak. I think that's really just what it was.
Yeah,
and that, by the way, Key, that is what it was.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's okay to just to just say things to reporters. You got to have etiquette and PR etiquette in situations like this. But how many times have we all said something silly when we were upset? I mean, they're human. We keep forgetting they're human beings.
Josina don't help though. She cannot wait to scream to anybody.
I agree that she
could have took something and ran with it, twisted it. Who knows what she actually heard and flipped. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's have some fun. Let's look at that. Let's look at that beautiful picture right there. Look at that wonderful picture.
Lovely.
Right there. Isn't
Can
that
I just
amazing?
say something very quick? And
please.
Is Andy Dalton not one of the scariest looking human beings you've ever seen in your life?
Yeah.
He looks like he's wearing a Halloween costume.
Is he?
Yes.
Look, I've never seen him before, ever.
You've never seen but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I don't think I just wonder if during the process of signing, if he was required to submit a tape of him clapping, because I know how Dallas loves these redheaded clapping backup quarterbacks on the sidelines. So if you had to give like a demo tape of him clapping on the sidelines prior to signing the contract.
Yeah.
A Dak hype man.
Wasn't that perfect, though? I mean, here they are, and it's not even them in Dallas, because they are in Dallas, but they're everywhere. They've already infiltrated long ago our area here, and they could not wait to remind us Friday night, midnight through up until Andy Dalton was signed as a Cowboy about Jalen Hurts this and Jalen Hurts that. I know, and you know, that Andy Dalton won't start the season as the starting quarterback, but how much fun was it at the very least?
They are the most can't dish it out but can't take it back fan base ever. So when we made jokes about Dalton starting, they just didn't want to. They just didn't want to hear it. And of course, we all know that Dalton is going to be a good backup for Dallas. I actually think it's a solid signing for Dallas, because you do have that veteran leadership if if Dak were to get hurt. But jokes are jokes. They took them. I mean, they gave them. They got to take them back.
That's exactly right.
I mean, as much as I want to sit here and joke about a redheaded backup quarterback and make Jason Garrett comparisons and talking about, they needed an insurance policy for Dak and they don't believe in Dak and all that. Really, I take a look at Andy Dalton's contract. What was it, $3 million?
Mm-hmm.
$3 million guaranteed.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't talk too much stuff, nor have I talked any stuff on Twitter, because I look at the Cowboys making a smart decision, backing up Dak Prescott with a veteran quarterback at a friendly deal and going, maybe that's what we should have done.
Something we could have done. I know.
Yes, maybe we should have done. So I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
No problem.
I wish I could keep my mouth shut. But I can't. I can't with Dallas fans. So the whole thing, the whole notion with this backup quarterback and he was cheap and people bring up Jameis is that it goes completely against the notion that the Eagles wanted backup QB stability for the future. So like the $6 million over the next 4 years or what have you, I think that was the route the Eagles would rather take than to sign a QB and then revisit this next offseason, sign another veteran and revisit it again. I didn't think they wanted to go that route. Plus, I can laugh at the fact that they're more encouraged to pay any other quarterback before Dak Prescott, and we paid ours, so they can pay whoever they want for that. So
that is
he can make $7 million, Gary. He can make $7 million with incentives. So that sounds
that is funny. But
not
Vic,
bad.
Let me ask you this: Dak Prescott goes down next season. Carson Wentz goes down next season.
Jalen Hurts all the way.
Jalen Hurts. I think Dalton is washed, and I
no fear.
I think Dalton's washed.
Bro. No.
Yeah,
there's a reason nobody wanted him. Patriots nah.
If he was good, too good for New England, exactly.
Okay.
I know I'm not.
Hurts was Andy Dalton. I'll be confident.
Yeah. I know I'm not supposed to answer, but that's a hell of a question right there.
Yeah.
And I feel like Andy Dalton you already know how bad he is, and he still has it in him where he'll try to take a game over and try to make a throw that he can't, and that'll kill you. I think
at least Jalen Hurts has that running aspect in.
Yeah, that's true.
Andy Dalton ain't running nowhere.
Just for his life, brother. That's for his life. All right. Give me a team. I have exact odds here. All right. We can wind down. I have exact odds for the Philadelphia Eagles, no matter what team you want to throw out. It's the way, way, way too early pre-NFL schedule release Super Bowl odds. And if you give me an exact team, all right, Vic, let's start with you, Key, and E-Rock. I have the odds on who the Eagles, if it's the Raiders, if it's the Browns, all the way up to the Chiefs, if you like. So we'll all assume, the four of us, that the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, which is a good assumption. Who do you want to start with as the odds-on favorite for you that they'd be playing?
So who would the Eagles be playing in the Super Bowl next year if I was a betting man?
And I have the odds to back it up. It's the way, way, way too. Or I threw 3 in there just to,
if I had to choose Kansas City or Baltimore, Kansas City mostly.
Kansas City's 40-1.
Like, I don't know if Lamar is going to do that again next year, though. That's the thing.
I agree. That's what makes me nervous. Kansas City.
It has to be Kansas City. New England's not. Whatever they're doing, I guess it has to be Kansas City. They're the most stable team. Nothing has changed really from last year, so I guess it has to be them. No, everyone else is more of uncertain.
Yeah, Kansas City's 40-1, which is the third technically highest favorite overall, and then Philadelphia and Baltimore's 50-1, which is the fourth highest favorite.
Philly's odds are that high?
Well, Philly, this is the exact. So
it's the exact. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah, right. Like you're thinking, like, wait,
Hold on.
Philly's the 5th highest. No, but
Marcus Goodwin
think of
comes
this though: the Philadelphia Eagles Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl matchup is like the 7th highest exact matchup overall, and a couple of them in front of them have the same odds. So there are only 2 Dallas ones ahead of them, and that's Dallas KC and Dallas Baltimore. Basically, the AFC is either going to be Kansas City or Baltimore. You know that pretty much until you hit 100-1 odds. But on the other side, the NFC, Philadelphia is thrown in there with Kansas City and Baltimore, kind of right below Dallas with Kansas City and Baltimore. So Eagles are kind of like just a half, if you will, favorite drop from Dallas against both Kansas City and Baltimore.
Okay.
Because of that
Got
draft,
it.
man. Dallas been having good drafts for decades and haven't done anything. So I don't know why.
Yeah,
people are throwing Dallas out there.
it's not going to surprise anybody that Dallas is going to be picked, or Dallas is Vegas favorites, or Dallas is going to get the primetime games.
Yeah,
It's
they're the
it's that
ultimate on paper
preseason.
team.
Yeah, exactly. They're
ultimate.
the preseason champions. They're the week 5 champions. They're the week 8 champions. And then as soon as the bye week hits, it's like,
And then when they lose, they get nothing but excuses.
Yep.
yeah, nothing but excuses.
That's
One
the
winning
best
team
part.
last year. One winning team they beat last year. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Dak was plus 1,200 for MVP.
Wow.
Ahead of Wentz. And I thought that was insanity based on the numbers and what Carson was able to do last year with nobody, and not to knock the actual human beings, but compared to what Dak has this year, it felt a little odd that Dak would be higher than Wentz.
Yeah.
Cowboys quarterback always going to get love no matter how good or bad he is. That's just unfortunately the sports world we live in.
Yeah, they have CeeDee Lamb now. Well, whether they're going to use him or not is to be debated. But once they see that addition to a team that already has Gallup and Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott, it's kind of hard for people to go against that. So
Yeah.
They look good on paper.
Yeah,
They do.
I'll
Paper's
admit
cool
it.
and all. Paper's cool and
Yeah,
all.
they-
Offensively, I agree with that statement. Defensively, I don't fully agree.
Wentz
I'm
went
not-
all over that
yeah.
defense. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It took a corner, but well.
Yeah.
Yep. And you also have to a good mention on Twitch here about, I wonder how much Vegas is factoring in, not that we would believe it was going to happen, but how much they factor in Wentz getting hurt, missing some time, maybe not even finishing the season. So that could be something in there. I lied. One more thing. It's not even Eagles related, but I'm curious, all 3 of you, me as well, we're all in different kind of age demos, if not to date anybody here, but I'm just saying, I'm sure even as busy as E-Rock is on the day-to-day, you have all had a chance to catch at least a glimpse of The Last Dance, correct? Is
Yes.
anybody out entirely on The Last Dance? Like E-Rock, have you missed it entirely to where I can't even bring it up right now?
No, I'm all caught up. I don't watch it Sunday night, but I DVR it and watch it on Monday, so I'm all caught up.
Okay, I'm curious. Is there something that no matter how much you were in tune with it when it happened versus maybe you were too young or just didn't give a whatever about it when it was happening, is there something, and I'm curious because I think, Vic, you're the youngest of all of us. What's the one thing that you walked away so far, kind of halfway, that you've learned about Jordan? First Jordan, and then maybe secondary the Bulls.
I'm the youngest. I'll go last. So.
No, I think this is the best that you go first.
You know what it was?
You're probably the
No,
ones. I'm sorry, Rock.
Let him go. Let him go.
It's all right. So I'm 38 years old. I was never a big hoops guy, but when I remembered Michael Jordan, I remembered watching him, from let's say post 94, 95. So I remember Jordan as this elite player at the top of his game. And I made the assumption that it was always that way. And what I was learning about Jordan through this documentary is his struggles early on in his career and how he had to develop into that type of elite player, how he had to go into the gym and start bulking up because he was sick of getting pushed around by Detroit, how he always didn't have that confidence. And you can even see it just by looking at him, looking at like late 90s Jordan and looking at like, early career Jordan. It's like looking at 2 different individuals. It really is. And so for me, it was going back and saying, oh, he wasn't always the Michael Jordan that I thought he was. He had to develop and work hard to be that type of player.
Yeah, so for me, like not being able to watch like Jordan in his prime, I was born in '93, so I got to like right when basketball was my first love before football and all that. So I was, of course, really big on the Sixers, but watching like Wizards Jordan was like what I got to watch. So seeing all this now in this documentary, because everybody sees the Kobe to LeBron to Jordan and all those things. So now seeing that how Jordan, like from a competitiveness, like his level of competitiveness is so different than anybody I've watched, documentary alone. So I think that I tried to watch it and I tried to see how the Sixers can learn anything from this with the superstars they have. And I think if we can adapt that kind of competitiveness and how he adapted his game based on his surroundings, that was my biggest takeaway, seeing the Wizards Jordan and seeing, obviously how he had to still adapt his game and be productive. And that Chicago Jordan was just a different breed than any other player at the time.
Yeah, I'm 32, so I actually remember my earliest memories of Jordan are probably 94, 95-ish, because that's mainly what I remember. So for me to go back and see like a really, really skinny Michael Jordan, it was just like, what the hell? Like, because when I saw him, he had like bulked up and put on weight. I also didn't know that he had suffered injuries earlier on in his career. There was just a lot I didn't know about, like how much adversity he had faced, kind of like what E-Rock was saying. That's really pretty much it, though. Like I knew about like all the off stuff things. I knew he had a personality. I know he got into it with a teammate or two. I didn't know all the details about what happened between him and Pippen and him and Barkley. So that was actually newer information as far as like the details on it.
Yeah, it is amazing. I thought they did a fantastic job of filling in details that even living through it, you didn't get. Even if it's like small little stories like that security guard where he's shooting coins with him, and Jordan bet on everything, and you were told that even during the time. Oh, he bets. But you see these small little stories about him betting on everything.
Yep.
But that's competitive, and it was very interesting to see, especially when the Kobe stuff came up.
Yeah, that was really touching.
It was really touching, but it was also, you can see so many similarities in personality, whereas the truly dominant players will not rely solely on their God-given ability. They will work. They want to crush your soul. Like they want to prove to you in any aspect that they are better than you. They are just better, that they're the greatest, that they are dominant. And it was kind of, you saw that in Kobe. Kobe was just a killer. He was an assassin, and Jordan was really the same way. Let me ask you something. This is called The Last Dance. What is the Nick Foles, Carson Wentz documentary going to be called? When's that one coming out?
They're filming it as we speak.
They're trying to compile all the footage now. Man, that's a great question.
I don't know, the injury chronicles, because both have been injured a lot. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what's going to be called.
Well, hopefully it's more than a 30 for 30, right? I need more. I need like a 10 episode version of what was going on. Give me POVs from the people involved there.
Right? All or nothing, the censored version. We want the whole story.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. All right. So once again, why don't we go around the horn? Oh, before that, we should mention that all-time Philadelphia Eagle great is still in the league for now his 16th year.
Frank Gore.
Absolutely. So we should give a standing round of applause for an all-timer here.
The oldest running back to start a season. That's crazy.
Yeah. How old is he now?
He's 38, right? Or 37?
Yeah.
What running back plays at 38 these days?
Yeah, that's like me running the ball.
That's you, E-Rock?
Hell no. Hell no.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody out there, for listening, for being a part of this. Let's run in order one more time. Let the world know where we can find you, Key, Vic, then E-Rock, all the different platforms and things you're doing.
Okay, so I'm Real Mama Eagle on Twitch and on Twitter. I do Twitch streams 4 days a week. This Friday, I'll actually be doing an NFL schedule reaction stream Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Awesome.
You can follow me on Twitter at the Philly Pod. You can subscribe the Philly Special Podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, everywhere else you get your shows. A new episode will be out tomorrow morning. I have Jack Fritz coming on to talk about Corey Clement and
nice.
Probably not Jalen Hurts because I'm over it, but he'll be on the show. We'll talk some Eagles ball and everything that's going on. Appreciate everybody for listening and subscribing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and I'm E-Rock. I'm around.
He has a podcast.
Don't worry about me. I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
4th of John. You can find it somewhere, I'm sure.
You don't know. You don't need to know now.
Thank you, everybody, for riding out. We'll be back next week.